All right, guys, today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, VA home loans. Matter of fact, I'm going to break it down into the top 10 things you need to know before you go and apply for your VA home loan. Hey, if you haven't already, please make sure you like and subscribe so you can get updated every time we come out with some new information and new videos on these topics. So the VA home loan is one of the absolute best tools that you can use when you're going to purchase a house. So if you're a veteran, there's some really important things that I'm going to go through here that we're going to break down through step by step. So we've literally used these tips to help thousands of veterans. As a matter of fact, in my career, I've done about 1,700 VA loans. About 70% of the loans we do every single month are VA loans. If you follow these steps, it's going to help you prepare, gain a lot of knowledge, be really well educated before you go and apply for your VA home loan. So let's get into it. So the number one thing that you need to know before you get your VA loan is VA loan eligibility. Are you eligible, and do you have your VA loan eligibility? And personally, I really feel that this one is the most important factor. A lot of times people will put the cart before the horse when it comes to their VA loan, and they're not doing enough research to make sure that they actually have eligibility. So let's talk about that. So what exactly does it mean to have VA loan eligibility? So I get this a lot. A lot of times people will get confused about, yeah, I have my DD-214. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you have VA loan eligibility. So the number one rule, the very first thing we want to do when we're applying for a VA home loan is we want to order what is called your certificate of eligibility. Again, this is not your DD-214. It's something completely different. And your certificate of eligibility actually tells us, it's like the golden ticket for veterans. It actually tells us that, hey, you had enough time in service or you've acquired enough points that you meet the eligibility to receive your home loan benefits. A lot of times people will think that they get it automatically just because they were in service, but there's some different caveats and some different things that we're going to look into in this video, and I'm going to explain all those step by step for you so you have a nice thorough understanding of it. So what is VA certificate of eligibility? It's also called your COE for short. What that is it tells us exactly that you have eligibility for your VA home loan. Okay, so step number one, how exactly do we go about getting your VA certificate of eligibility? Now, here's the thing. The majority of lenders are going to be able to order it for you. That's what we particularly like to do. You can go online and order it yourself. However, we typically find it happens a lot more quickly if we can order it for you. As a matter of fact, about 9 times out of 10, we're going to be able to get that certificate of eligibility back from the VA the exact same day. Every single once in a while with my Guard and Reserve, guys and gals, and we'll talk about that later, we have to get some additional information in for it. So if you do want to get the VA eligibility yourself, you can just go to va.gov. There's some information that you can put in there and you can go in and get it issued yourself. However, we do find that the majority of people, and I mean like 99%, find it's easier for just to order it for you and be able to get that. So let's go over what exactly are the VA's minimum requirements for your time in service for you to be eligible for the VA home loan. So what does that mean? You've been in the service, active duty, and you're doing something, and you've served for at least 90 continuous days all at once without any break in service. You meet the minimum active duty service requirement. If you are a veteran and the minimum active duty service requirements depend on the time that you served, there's different timelines that are involved from when you served, and we're going to break those down one by one just so you can get a clear understanding of that. Okay, so if you served between August 2nd, 1990 and present, this is which we consider is called the Gulf War era, and you've had at least 24 months of continuous service, or the full period, at least the 90 days for which you were called or ordered to active duty, you're going to meet the requirements. If you've had at least 90 days, if you were discharged for a hardship or a reduction in force or something of that nature, you're going to meet those requirements as well. If you have less than 90 days, but you were discharged for a service-connected disability, meaning you got activated on active duty during that time and you got injured and they found that, hey, you can no longer serve due to this injury, you're still going to meet those minimum requirements. And if it was between September 8th, 1980 and August 1st, 1990, so right before that Gulf War period, you're going to meet the minimum active duty service requirements if you've served for at least 24 continuous months or the full period, at least 181 days for which you were called to active duty. Or if you served for at least 181 days and you were discharged for a hardship or again a reduction in force or something of that nature, or a service-connected disability again. You got hurt or injured or became disabled while serving. If you served between May 8th, 1975 and September 7th, 1980, this is what we call the post-Vietnam era. You meet the service minimum requirements, again, if you served for 181 continuous days, or less than 181 days if you were discharged for a service-connected disability. And if you served between August 5th, 1964 and May 7th, 1975, you meet the minimum active duty service requirement if you served for at least 90 total days, or if it was less than 90 days, and again, you were discharged for a service-connected disability. Now, here's where it gets tricky. And a lot of times, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, for my Guard and Reserve guys and gals, we don't always necessarily get the certificate of eligibility right away. So if you are in the Guard, if you're a Guard member, the minimum active duty service requirements depend on when you served. So if that was between August 2nd, 1990 and the present, again, the Gulf War period to present, and you served for at least 90 days on active duty, you meet the minimum service requirement. Well, nowadays, because of force reduction and things like that, a lot of guys that are in Guard units are finding they get activated onto active duty or Title 10 orders, and they go and get deployed, or they're on active duty for 90 days. That's what that means. You then have that service requirement for the eligibility for the VA loan. If it's for any other time period, you meet the minimum active duty service requirement if you served for at least 90 days of non-training active duty service, or at least 90 days of active duty service, including at least 30 consecutive days. So your DD 214 must show what's called 32 USC sections 316, 502, 503, 504, or 505. What the heck does that mean, Aaron? Don't worry about it. We'll get a copy of your DD 214 and get that in. Now, if you've been in the Guard and you've never gotten deployed, you've never gotten Title 10 orders and never been activated on active duty, if you've been in the Guard for 6 creditable years or more, you're going to have your eligibility. Or if you were in for 6 years or more, were never activated to active duty, and you've been discharged, you're now out of the Guard, you're going to have your time requirements for eligibility for the VA home. Now, if you're a reservist, if you are in the Reserve, a lot of guys will get the Guard and Reserve confused. I have guys and gals that have been in both, or all three, active duty, Guard, and Reserve. So if you're in the Reserves, the minimum active duty service is going to, again, depend on when you serve. If it was during the Gulf War time, if you served for at least 90 days active duty, you meet the service requirements. So again, if you were in a reserve squadron or something of that nature and you got activated to active duty and served for at least 90 days, you're going to fulfill that requirement. Any other time period, you meet the minimum active duty service requirement if at least 90 days of non-training active duty service, or again, 6 creditable years in the selected reserves. And at least one of these must be true. You were discharged honorably, or you were placed on the retired list, or you were transferred to the standby reserve, or an element of the Red Reserve other than selected reserve after service. Your characterization was honorable, or you continue to serve in selected reserves. So, what happens if you don't meet the minimum service requirements? Well, you can actually still be eligible for your certificate of eligibility if you were discharged for one of the reasons listed here. So you must have been discharged for one of these reasons: a hardship or the convenience of the government. You must have served at least 20 months. So if you were in for at least 20 months and all of a sudden they did a force reduction, something of that nature, and you did 20 months of a 2-year enlistment, you have a possibility of having eligibility. Or you got an early out. You must have served 21 months, but 2-year enlistment, that's a possibility as well. Again, reduction in force. Or if you obtain certain medical conditions or a service-connected disability. So even if you don't meet all those other ones, you still have a shot of getting your certificate of eligibility with those other things. Here I get this question a lot. Do I have to have an honorable discharge to be able to get my VA certificate of eligibility? So what should I do if I receive an other than honorable or a bad conduct? So what do you do if you got something else other than an honorable discharge? Where there's still some things you can do. If you received an other than honorable, bad conduct, or dishonorable discharge, you may be still able to be eligible. You can find out how to apply for what's called a discharge upgrade. Again, you want to contact the VA directly, and you need to learn about the VA character of discharge review process. Now, I have had situations where I have had veterans where we got got their discharge, and it was other than honorable, but it was for something that wasn't super horrible, and they were still able to get the certificate of eligibility. So you don't know unless you try. So in regards to this, that's probably the biggest thing to understand is you want to find out and make sure you have your eligibility first. Matter of fact, it's gotten so important that in the past few years, the VA actually changed their rules, and they would not even let a lender order the appraisal until they had proof that the lender had actually obtained the certificate of eligibility that was in the file. What was happening was the VA was sitting here having these loans trying to get closed, and the appraisal's back, and lenders are saying, hey, I don't have the certificate of eligibility yet on this veteran, and unfortunately would find out the veteran didn't have eligibility. So now the veteran's out money for an appraisal, some other things, when they shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. So bottom line is, step number one in the top 10 things you need to know about getting your VA home loan: get your certificate of eligibility ordered right away, have your lender do it, and that way we know that you've got that eligibility part and we can move on to the next part. Hey, if you found this information helpful, please make sure you like, subscribe, give us a comment down below, and stay tuned for more information. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you soon.